Hey everyone, I am sort of listening back myself because I don't know if this will work. But today I'm going to be covering this is the second part of the podcast for Erased. And well, today I'm going to go through episodes 5 through 8. Also, I apologize for the camera looking as big as it does, and also that the chat won't appear on screen. I haven't figured that out yet. Well, let's get right into the notes. We're going to start off with episode 5, where in the previous episode, it was the birthday party. But yeah, Satoru does get caught worrying about Kyo by Gaku because Kyo hasn't showed up to class. But because he's unable to voice his worry, but he's also able to just run out of school to her house. No one answers the door, nor does he find her in the shed. But the rubbish boots in the snow are super sus. And Kyo's parents are hiding out inside. And we learned that on Thursday, March 3rd, 1988, Kyo disappeared. Satoru stayed home for 2 days after this incident because it's like lost someone that he was trying to protect. And overhears Sachiko and a man talking about a similar incident in a neighbouring city. The culprit of that incident was caught, but history seems to be repeating itself, as this culprit is saying that they're innocent. Perhaps this is the same killer of the current killings Satoru is reliving. The plan to contact the school and City Hall over this incident is an attempt to prevent more incidents like what happened to Kyo. Over dinner, Satoru thinks about this incident in an attempt to Satoru thinks about what he missed and what he could have done more to say. Like, what could he have done to save Kyo from whatever happened to her? Sachiko mentions there's only so much one person can do for anyone, including them, or her, or him. And back at school, Gaku reveals he lied to the class about Kyo having a cold, saying she moved to a grandma's place in Sapporo for personal reasons, which does line up considering this story takes place in Hokkaido, and Sapporo is like the capital city of Hokkaido. Throughout the class, there's gossip that Kyo ran away from home, and that her mum beat her, and how bad that is. Like, obviously, like, I know it's not tactful, but I'll be mentioning that a student in the class is getting abused by their mother. But after class, Gaku and Satoru talk about the true nature of what happened to Kyo, with both of them knowing the severity of the true story. One may be more than the other. Not long after Kyo's disappearances, like just only 6 days, Aya is the next target to go missing, causing an issue to go out to always be with a guardian when leaving school grounds. The same rumours with Kyo are circling about Aya's vanishing act over at Izumi Elementary. And Kenya is sharp to figure the situation is a series of abductions. And while details are slightly different, the overall timeline is ending up to be exactly the same. And after 10 days since Kaya's disappearance, the police car outside of the Hinazuki residence has been there less often, meaning the focus of the investigation must have shifted to said serial abductions. On his way home, Satoru sees a creepy smile across the face of Kaya's mum while throwing out the trash. And inside the trash bag is Kaya's birthday present for him, which were mittens that she was knitting. That's why, like, early on she did the whole hand thing. Get a sense of his hand size. And on that discovery, like, Satoru suddenly returns to the present to discover his present self has evaded police, and that his mum is still dead. So it's like half win. It's like a half win at that point. If you avoided death or like avoided getting caught by the police, but your mum's still dead, that's still like a half win, right? Considering your character did not kill your mum. Managing to flee the scene due to the fact that his present body was a fair distance from the crime scene already, Satoru ends up hiding under a bridge like a child. But having a moment to think, he pieces together clues to why his mum was murdered due to knowing the culprit. He also remembers that her cell phone and bag were gone when he got back to keep information about him from leaking. This killer is smart. His boss manages to get in contact with Satoru. He's like, hey, I'm worried, I'm worried about you. And, he, invites Satoru over to his place and makes him dinner. Satoru does like that he and his mum recently had an argument, which his boss buys, saying they need to patch things up. And seeing the news, Satoru looks out the window to see his boss talking to the police. It's like, he's not evil. Like, the manager is not a bad person. He's trying to do the right thing. Satoru even knows that. But it does force him on the run again. While escaping, he runs into Ari, who immediately offers to help and even turns off his phone so they can't track his location on GPS, and takes him back to her place. Ari says it as it is, that Satoru clearly didn't kill his mum. It's nothing he would do. Like, it's like the most obvious thing, but the police just don't believe it. Ari just so happens to have Satoru's copy of Showa's most shocking crimes, which shows that KO was 11 when she disappeared, meaning Satoru could actually save KO with one last try. It's like he actually managed to change the timeline. The next day, Ari goes about her normal routine as to not raise suspicion of the Satoru stowaway. And when he leaves her house, he notes that it's the Sasaoka household, not Katagiri. And while at the pizza shop, the manager talks with a mysterious man, Mr. Nishizono, about how the change of one stoplight and pedestrian crossing improved the business of the pizza shop, with the noteworthy detail of how it's a school route. The manager shows his perverted thoughts on his face when Ari announces she's leaving with a pizza for a friend. It's like, huh? Mr. Nishizono also leads to look at Ari, but instead of him pulling up next to Ari, the manager does and asks her to help Satoru in any way she can. Which she's already doing that. She's hardly better at her place. And speaking of Satoru, back at the library, Satoru does more digging into the history of other disappearances, finding one from 3 years ago, with the suspect bleeding innocent. Satoru Satoru sneaks back to Ari's house, but the manager sees his location and tries calling the police, only for Ari to take and break his phone and punch him in the face. It's like, full on. Since the manager knows his location now, it's back to the bridge for Satoru. The good old bridge. And turns out the house belongs to Ari's mum's big brother and his wife, and they're letting her stay there. And asking how Ari can still believe him, believe in Satoru. She answers that she wants to believe in Satoru. Ari tells the story of how her father denied that he tried stealing chocolate from a small town store owner. She believed her dad did nothing wrong. All over a chocolate bar. Her dad got suspended for 3 months from the agricultural coup, so he left it. He got divorced and left his family behind since his wife didn't believe him. To her wanting to believe Satoru is the flip side of Satoru saying, "Please believe me." While packing a change of clothes for Satoru, Ari suddenly gets a message from Sachiko's phone saying it's Satoru and to stay where she is. Ari figures it's the killer when smoke starts filling her room from the fire that was set by the killer. With a bout of stupidity, Ari opens her door to the fire, causing her windows to blow out from the heat and her to collapse from smoke inhalation. It's like, wow, you gotta be that dumb. It's like, you make a character that is smart enough to turn off a phone's a phone to hide it from GPS, but not smart enough to just get rid of the phone. Oh no, not open the door to the fire, I mean. It's like, However, I got a bit of a note here to add. The message I received was marked as 13th of May. Now, in the original timeline, Sachiko got killed on May 25th, 2006. However, this message I received is dated May 13th from Sachiko's phone. Now, if you add up all the events that happened since Satoru's return, they happened within the first 2 days of returning, and with how hot police are on the search for Satoru, this timeline places Sachiko's death on May 11th, 2006, which is a full 2-week discrepancy, which also does line up with Satoru's 2-week journey in 1988, because he got sent back to the 18th, and February 18th and March 1st marks the end of the 2-week period, and then they had 2 extra days after that, because he temporarily succeeded in his mission, or partially succeeded in his mission. Moving on to episode 6, and Satoru sees that Ari's house is on fire, and he oh, the smoke inhalation is getting to me. Satoru, he races in to save her from the flames. He's got a cloth over his mouth to protect his mouth from the smoke. And managing to get her moving, Ari slips her phone into his pocket. It's like, That's how I'll go, whoop. Their and like their manager also comes into the fire burning building and to save them both from the fire. And Satoru tells Ari to leave him. Satoru checks Ari's phone to see the same email she received, framing him for arson, leaving him to wonder whether he followed her or if she knows him. The following morning, Satoru calls Sachiko's ex-workmate for them to meet up, but he wants a public place because of the whole, murder story that's like, Satoru's the murderer, sort of thing. So at a coffee shop, the ex-workmate introduces himself as Sawada, the same person Satoru saw as a kid, only older. Sawada immediately says that Satoru didn't kill his mum because Sachiko didn't raise her son to kill her in the end. Obviously. And back at Sawada's office, Satoru shares the note his mum had dropped on the floor. And adding on to what I talked about earlier, for this note to exist in the first place, that means everything in episode 1 has to have happened 2 weeks earlier in the timeline for the current date of this particular point in the episode to be May 14th, which should have a massive knock-on effect, like, down the backlog of the timeline. Or it could just be, like, just the last 2 weeks. Or it could be just like what happened in episode 1 got shifted back 2 weeks. And Satoru blames himself for these events due to a string of blunders, which Sawada answers with Sachiko's words of thinking, "You did wrong is pointless after it happened." The conversation shifts to the phone call between Sawada and Sachiko, to which she called about the serial killings 18 years ago, and announcing she knows who the killer is. Sawada decides he wants to bring up Kaya's death to reveal the details that she was beaten by her mother and boyfriend, followed by the classic shed lookup. That night, though, she froze to death, and her mother and boyfriend were suspected of hiding the body. However, Kaya's body disappeared between 10 and 11 p.m, and the mother realized she was gone at 12:30 a.m. on the 3rd. And Jun was arrested for the crime since the footprints by the shed matched his boots. According to the police's version of events, Jun knocked Kaya out and photographed her, then used his family freezer and sprayed water on her to speed up her death by freezing. After 30 minutes, Jun returned her to the shed he found her in before sunrise. Using the explanation the police provided and other similar crimes, Sawada creates a link to the fact that the police in the race just suck at police work, and that the killer kills in a way to give the police another suspect. Because, yeah, the police absolutely suck at their jobs, as we'll see later. So yeah, Ari wakes up in the hospital and sneaks out of her room to overhear 3 cops talking about how Satoru wouldn't be able to get to her with them as guards, even though one of these cops is looking in her direction. So she could have just walked out. and that apparently she helped him in killing his mum, and the fire was to tie up that loser. What? What is this insanity that you're offering up? It's like, no one will believe her story because your story is apparently so believable. Like, her aunt and uncle thinking a stalker was after her. Like, let's just say the police are terrible at their jobs and are stupid. Even the newspaper is straight on the suspect sets co-worker house on fire storyline. It's like everyone is just like, down with Satoru, down with Satoru. My gosh. Sawada and Satoru's conversation goes over to the message I received, and that she must still be in the hospital despite her few injuries. It's like, yeah, because they're holding her as a suspect for some reason. Since the killer was looking into when Satoru gets home from work, he would have known that Ari works at the pizza shop as well. The very fact that the killer is someone that's able to get behind the counter to see the shift schedule gives them the way to reach the killer. Sawada heads out to the hospital and allows Satoru to look at a report on the murders from 1988 on his computer, which is going to be a massive help in solving this case. The report explains that Jun suspected his father as the killer, which only made Jun look more like the killer. Classmates saw Kei and Jun together 3 times, so of course the police went with the other students' testimony over Satoru's. The report also includes a suspect list of 5 names: Jun Shiratori, Sachiko Shiratori, Yazo Shida, Shinji Sakashita, and Tadashi Yanagita. The police guess that Harumi was murdered after being mistaken for a girl, but Satoru figures out that the killer knew Harumi was a boy and killed him to not be a suspect. Jun was arrested after a report from someone in the neighborhood of him talking to a 3rd grade girl when she was alone, and further evidence of Hiromi's death were found in Shitori's food storage room. The pedo content in Jun's room was also given to him as camouflage for the real killer. It's like, okay, that's like, some people can be a pedophile and not murder. I know that sounds wrong, but that is a possibility. Over at the hospital, Sawada uses the bathroom excuses and it's like, I gotta go to sneak past the cops. These cops suck. and get to Ari's room. However, Ari has already worked her own sneaky magic with the help of her mum, her mum, to escape the hospital. Earlier in the day, Ari explained everything to her mum, and she believed her, telling Ari to go help Satoru. Ari wants to meet Satoru at the bridge, not realizing she has a tail on her. And seeing 2 kids mess around with the same type of plane that Jun played with, Satoru helps them to get to fly far. Much to the dismay of their mothers. It's like, who? And that's like when Satoru's like, wait, is this how Jun felt? Waiting under the bridge, it takes a while for Ari to show up, and Satoru accidentally says out loud that he thought it might have been a police trap. Ari thinks that the Nishizono guy is fishy, saying that he's a city councilman. The manager treats Nishizono with respect, and that he could have seen the schedule and known where Ari lived. Nishizono doesn't line up with anyone from the previous suspect list before the final one, which does include Makoto Kawada and Sachiko herself, which is definitely not true now, considering she's dead. Ugh. The final piece of the killer's identity is not fitting together, annoying Satoru. Mentioning that he has unfinished business from a long time ago, he frames it as a manga story about a Grim Reaper that makes a scheduling mistake leading to the death of a child. The more he tries to put things back the way they were, the more other people involved suffer. However, Ari turns it around, and says she's not hurt, and that the framing of other people get hurt is the Reaper's subjective impression. Suddenly, the police converge on their location because, of many reasons, and arrest Satoru on counts of murder and attempted murder resulting from arson at 4:50 p.m. While being walked away, Satoru stops to say that she's wrong about it being her fault, that he is being arrested, and that her believing in him gave him the ability to get as far as possible. And that's when he sees a man hiding his face with an umbrella and realizes that's the killer, watching him be taken away. And getting into episode 7, with everything Satoru has left, he screams out for one last chance to change the future, which works and sends him back to February 27th, 1988, the Saturday at the museum. This is Satoru's last chance to save Kyo and Hiromi from the killer. No matter how ungrateful it is, since this is his last revival. Wait, how do you know it's your last one? You never know. It could just be an ability that just exists with you across the timelines. What if there's multiple versions of you that have this ability? That'd be weird. After leaving the Silent Center, Kazu says he's hungry, and Satoru offers to buy the more okonomiyaki to eat. Absolutely delicious dish, by the way. I've been having it a lot more recently, and it's... Out of the blue, Kenya asks if Satoru has read the book called The Switched Man by Edgar Allan Poe. And people that know Edgar Allan Poe know this book isn't real. But, it was lent to him 2 weeks ago. Getting home at night, Satoru tells his mum to remember that you can, in fact, get to UNO without switching trains. On Monday, Satoru tells Kenya he lost the book Kenya lent him, to which he reveals the book never existed, of course. And moving the conversation into the stairwell, Kenya has noticed how serious Satoru has been recently, which makes him happy. He just has one nagging question. Who is Satoru? Kenya has noticed Kenya's injuries long before Satoru did, but never acted on the situation like Satoru did. Since Satoru can't say he's from the future, he instead says that he wants to be a superhero. And that's when Satoru drops the bombshell of knowing Kyo will be murdered, and Kenya reboots Satoru's statement of wanting to be a hero because he is already one, and Kenya wants to be one too. Let's be heroes together. Asking Hiromi, Kenya, and Kyo to wait at the children's center, Satoru races to give Jun an alibi to keep him out of jail, and revealing that Kyo has become part of his friend group. Arriving at the children's center, Satoru finds Kenya's message of them being in the gym next door, which is like he doesn't want it to shift too far. But yeah, things go along like the original changed timeline. Yeah, the original changed timeline. Not the original timeline. With the birthday party. However, this time Satoru heads out to flatten the tires of the Shiratori vehicles along with a threatening message through the window. This reign of terror almost goes into physical harm against Kaya's mother, only for Kenya to stop him. It's like, at that point, what are you doing? Kenya says that he's been following Satoru for the past 2 days and that he saw what he did at the Shiratori residence. Satoru decides that he needs Kenya's help, but Kenya is worried that it will cause quite the stir. Not that Satoru cares though. Even committing a serious crime is better than letting Keo die. And this time, on walking Keo home, he remembered his jacket and gloves because the last time he was just like and like when leaving the house. However, he changes the script by asking if he could abduct her because it's the only thing he can think of. And taking her to an abandoned school bus that's only used for storage, Kenya is also there to help Keo get comfy in the hideout location. Both Kenya and Satoru head home for the night, leaving Keo to sleep out on the bus. On the way home, the two talk about how cringy their lies to Keo were, and Satoru tells Kenya to act like he knows nothing if this goes public. Back at his home, Satoru asks if his mum has received any calls from Keo's mum, which she hasn't, showing that Keo's mum doesn't even care about her own daughter. It's like, your daughter's missing, lady. And sneaking out at 2:30 a.m, Satoru doesn't realise his mum knows that he's sneaking out and goes to see Keo and has cup noodles with her. Satoru invites Keo on a camping trip for when summer comes around, saying she'll be able to come. The next morning, Kenya arrives to wake the huddled Satoru and Keo up to get them out of the bus before the Izuma students arrive. Like, to get Satoru out of the bus. It's like, they were huddled. They, relationship material. Was Azumi we put oh my gosh. Thursday goes by without anything suspicious happening, and Keo's mum hasn't called the police either. Weird. Hiromi is also brought into the fold of protecting Keo, and is curious how it will end. Satoru says he'll take full responsibility, but Keo shoots it down, saying that if she says she was the one to instigate it, well, there's no one to blame, right? In the middle of the night, we find out that a stranger knows the location of the bus and enters it. And in episode 8, a stranger is outraged and kicks a box on the bus before leaving and not finding Keo hidden away. Sachiko is up early to prepare breakfast for her son as a way to ask what Satoru is up to so early in the mornings recently. Happy with knowing he's not doing anything bad, she gives Satoru extra food since he would be hungry before lunch. Satoru meets up with Keo on the bus and he hands her the extra food to have as breakfast. After Satoru leaves, Keo finds a note from Sachiko showing she knows he has met someone, even if it's not Keo herself. It's like she has some knowledge. Satoru worries he spent too much time with Keo since Inazuma students are showing up, including the next target, Aya. And Keo is like back at school. Keo is the talk of the class, and Misato asking if Satoru knows anything, and Kazu wondering if she has a cold. Gaku decides class needs to start since you know it's Keo. She can show up at any time, and because it's her thing. In the staff room, Gaku and Satoru talk about how they both visited this Hinazuki residence over their worries for Ko. Gaku even tried calling the house about Ko and revealed they called the Child Constellation Center yesterday. So, like, Satoru's happy that Gaku is already working on things behind the scenes. And that night, Gaku and the CCC tried to contact anyone inside the Hinazuki residence, only to notice the back door unlocked and walking straight in. It's just like, what? Hello? It's like him in Bad Boys, like the investigator in the house. It's like, we just wanted to borrow some sugar. But yeah, Gaku says he knows that Ko is safe, and in fact, knows her current location. Yeah, and also, the mother escaped out the back the moment that they arrived. Back at the bus hideaway, Satoru explains what happened to Kenya and Hiromi, and Ko takes the moment to give Satoru his now late present of the gloves. And Ko's like, can you please stay the night? Not as a date thing, as like the other students, as like Kenya and Hiromi think. Well, like, mostly Hiromi. Kenya is more like, there has to be some sort of reason. And that's because she mentions the stranger. And like, exploring the bag and box left behind by the stranger, they realize that they unwittingly hid Ko on the killer's bus. Which is so unlucky that it's like, we just hid a victim with the killer. And like, Satoru even gives a recap of the framing evidence. Like, Satoru takes his time to give us a recap of the framing evidence. And like, the method and time around Ko's death to us. The killer even has a brisket burner and 3 kilos of brisket in preparation of waiting for the right time to strike on a second victim. And turns out Satoru was ready with a plan B though. Which is like in plain sight right in, like, in his house. And gives a simple explanation of how this is what happens when he doesn't abandon Ko to his mum. Sachiko already suspected that it would just be Satoru returning home at some point and make curry, which is both good for the big groups and also last several days. The yokai is thinking ahead. But with a moment to herself, Sachiko calls Gaku to tell him that Satoru and Ko came back to her house, and Gaku mentions that Ko's mother wasn't home. As the night drags on, Sachiko and Ko share the bathroom, so Sachiko can wash Ko's hair and make her laugh. Sachiko even had pajamas ready for Ko, almost like she knew the whole time. It's like, wow, okay. Impressive. Satoru slips up in talking about a field trip to Mount Hakodate, but plays it off as seeing it in the photos, like talking about the night sky at Mount Hakodate. Ultimately, Satoru gets hit on the head twice when Sachiko asks if she's in the way, to which he answers yeah. It's like, he immediately just like, yeah. Bonk. Ah. Ah. That actually hurts. I don't know what hurt more, my my thumb. Because, yeah, I think it was my thumb. Yeah, don't do it with the thumb side down. Ah. Oh yeah, my phone just cracked. The next morning, Sachiko is up early to make them breakfast, which is way more than Kei's usual breakfast of cup noodles, a piece of bread, or two 100 yen coins, which would not make a tasty snack. Although she does get a red bean pancake. The breakfast is so beautiful and way more plentiful that it causes her to cry. And at the Hinazuki residence, Kei's mother is ready to destroy her daughter's room when Kei returns with Sachiko and Satoru in tow. And that's how episode 8 ends. On the YouTube side, obviously, links. Oh my gosh. Links in the description to the channels and Twitch